Hey everyone, this is Shreyas and welcome back to another video. So in this particular video, I'll be doing my full review of the OnePlus 10 Pro. Now, this is a very confusing device in my opinion, and I think the title is pretty appropriate. And why do I say so is what you should watch the rest of the video for. Now, I have a few videos in the pipeline which might help you decide which devices you should go for. Especially my daily driver is the Pixel 6 Pro. So I'll be doing an in-depth comparison with the Pixel 6 Pro for the OnePlus 10 Pro, including performance, cameras, etc. Not just that, I got a little time again with my old OnePlus 9 Pro. I compared it side by side. Although I did not get a variety of camera samples, I have a few. So that might help you understand what might be the camera upgrades compared to the 9 Pro and other things as well, which I will mention in that particular comparison video. So if you're not yet subscribed and you're excited to know what would be the best value for you as a consumer, make sure to subscribe because that's coming very soon. And if you like this particular video, make sure to hit that like button and stay notified so that you don't miss out on future videos. With that said, this is Shreyas and let's check that out. So I always start my videos with the build quality and design. Now honestly, the design is a bit polarizing. What I don't like is actually I am fine with the camera cutout or the design of it. The only thing that I don't like is the glossy finish on the camera module. The rest of the back is exactly like the OnePlus 9 Pro. I used it side by side. It's almost like they just pasted the same material. So if you have used the 9 Pro in the Stellar Black variant, this is exactly same. It's just called Volcanic Black. And as usual, OnePlus, they are really good with their ergonomics and CMF overall. It has a metal rail, which is great. It has the alert slider, which is really handy and useful, honestly speaking. And I really like how it feels in the hand. It's not really heavy. It weighs around 202 grams. It's okay, and the 9 Pro weighed around 198 grams, so it's not really that much of a weight upgrade as well, although the internal size of the battery has increased, giving this a 5000 milliamp hour battery capacity. Now I'll come to the battery capacity and the performance later. Now Jerry everything did his durability test on it and it failed miserably. Now this is kind of a first on the OnePlus side of phones. Now I personally did not feel like it was really flimsy or anything on my day-to-day use, but yes, that comfort that I had using the older OnePlus phones, especially the 68 Pro and the 9 Pro, I did not feel as comfortable, but that's only because I'm aware of that incident. If you do not do any special type of abuse, it should last fine according to me. Alright, now next let's come down to the display. Now display department has been really great barring the 8 Pro, to be very honest. The 9 Pro had a really great display. It's very slightly brighter, but the highlight over here is the LTPO2 technology. Usually the refresh counter in the developer settings does not work very well, but in this case I actually used it and saw a refresh rate go down till 10 Hz. Now that's really great. It's not still 1 Hz. I'm sure more software optimization is required for it, but it does go down to 10 Hz, which is great for the battery life as well as using other resources. So that's the good thing. In the 9 Pro, I did not observe that. OnePlus gives you a lot of flexibilities about the display calibration as well. There are a lot of modes, especially with OxygenOS 12.1. So that's something you can explore and find out what suits your taste best. Speaking of the display, the haptic motor inside is really great. It was good on the OnePlus 9 Pro as well. I don't see a major change. I used them side by side, but it's good enough and I would call it flagship level haptic motor feedback. The next thing about the display is also about the material on the display, which is Gorilla Glass Victus finally. Last year I was expecting it on the 9 Pro, did not happen, but the back is still Gorilla Glass 5. Watching content on this was really great and no issues with Wide 1L1 or HDR support on supported apps. Netflix, Prime, YouTube, everything supports HDR really well. And it is a 1440p display, and I ran this phone at 1440p as well. The next thing is the speakers, which enhance the media experience. Now, the speakers are slightly upgraded from the 9 Pro in my opinion. I will tell you more in detail, but honestly speaking, the speakers are great. I compared it to my Pixel 6 Pro as well. It's performing really great. There is some depth to the speakers, and the balance between the two drivers is really well done, which makes it a very pleasant experience when you're watching content on this particular phone. Now the next thing, let's come into battery life and charging. We all know how OnePlus advertised the 80 watt charging speeds. It's called Super VOOC now because of the merger with Oppo and all that stuff that's going around in the background. I won't go into that, but it supports 80 watt charging with its charger which is in the box. But something that you did not know probably is if it supports PD charging. Now I tried my 65 watt PD charger. It shows charging rapidly. I could not measure what is the maximum wattage, but last I checked with the 9 Pro at least, it used to go up to almost 45 watts given the charging times. That's my estimation. I did not have a measuring tool to be very honest, so don't quote me on that. And this seems to go up to similar speeds as well. So the charging time is not too bad. With the charger in the box, you can expect a charging time from 0 to 100 for around 30 to 35 minutes. But with the PD charger up to 45 watts, according to me, it should go up to around 45 to 50 minutes. That's been my experience using this for a whole week with only a PD charger. And the USB port over here also supports USB 3 speeds, so that's great when you're transferring huge media file. Alright, so that's about the charging. Now about the battery life, I have been fairly happy actually. I'm getting more battery life than I used to on my OnePlus 9 Pro, both on OxygenOS 11 and 12. I'm getting easily 6 hours of screen on time over here. Now I believe there are a few contributing factors to it. First of all, I do not game, so that spares the 8 Gen 1 from using all its capacity and power at one go. The next thing is that the LTPO technology is actually working, I feel, because I see the refresh rate changing down to almost 10 Hz as I mentioned before. And the next thing is the increased battery capacity. Now this is something that actually really works out well because they did it without really increasing the weight of the phone or the size of the phone as much. So that's why I'm happy with the battery life, and since it supports PD charging, I'm not sure what was the case with the 9 Pro and the 8 Pro, but I believe they were capped up to 10 watts of Qi charging, which isn't the case anymore over here because I got faster wireless charging speeds in terms of the time taken to fill this battery up. Now about the cameras, overall the cameras are very similar. There is one major omission which you should know about is that there is no macro camera lens. It's kind of baffling to me because they had really good macro lenses according to me on the 8 Pro and the 9 Pro. It started from the OnePlus 7T Pro if I remember correctly, and since the last two phones had really big sensors and high megapixel count, the clarity and the details on these macro shots were really good. Also even in low light because the sensor was so big. Now that is a glaring miss in my opinion, and I kind of missed it because even my Pixel 6 Pro does not have a macro camera. The camera performance is decent. I think it's very similar to the 9 Pro. In certain cases the 9 Pro is a little better, in certain cases the 10 Pro is a little better. The color representation in harsh sunlight, there were color casts in the 9 Pro like a pinkish cast, which is not seen on the 10 Pro as much. The HDR performance is pretty decent. Where it again fails, just like its predecessors, is in representation of skin tones. I don't think it's the most accurate or something that I would personally like myself. I know it can suit a certain section of the consumers, but it's not for me. Especially when I compare it with the Pixel 6 Pro, I'm really disappointed from time to time when I click pictures over here. Another upgrade significantly which you have is the selfie camera, which goes up to 32 megapixels, but even regardless of that, you are still capped to 1080p video recording for some reason. Although the field of view has increased, in my opinion, on the selfie camera from the 9 Pro. Probably the only advantage you have more detailed selfie, probably because of the resolution of the camera, but again it messes up in terms of skin tones. Now, a few things, the telephoto lens is just a 8 megapixel sensor, so what you do get is OIS, which does help, I'm sure. But on the telephoto lens, it can only be used in 1080p recording. I believe it is because of the megapixel count. In 4K recording, if you zoom in, it will do so from the main sensor. And the ultra wide is special. It has a 150-degree mode as well, which could give you a very unique perspective. Personally, it's not for me because I don't like that much distortion in my photos, but I'm sure that in a situation where I do not have flexibility to move around to get more things in the shot, it could be useful. And because the sensor is so big and it is the GN1 sensor by Samsung, it's doing well. It has quite a bit of detail, honestly, and I'm liking the performance overall of it. There are additional modes like long exposure mode with guides of how much the exposure time should be with the situation. You do get 4K 120 FPS, which has been one of my favorite video recording modes in the OnePlus 9 Pro, and it comes to the 10 Pro as well, thankfully. You do get 8K 24 FPS recording if you do care about it and want to do so. And there is no limit to how much time 4K 60 FPS goes up, which was there initially on the OnePlus 9 Pro. Now, another addition which video nerds might like is that there is a pro video mode this time, where you can tweak a lot of the settings in while recording video. And not just that, they gave you an option to enable log mode so that you can grade it in post-production and get it to your taste. Right, so this is 4K 30 FPS. I'm walking around quite swiftly. Let me go to the ultra wide lens. This is how it looks in the ultra wide lens. Also, let me know in the comments how the mics sound. Let me slowly zoom into. Okay, so as I said, you do not get the access to the telephoto lens when you're in 4K. So let me show you how it looks in 1080p. This is 1080p 30 FPS. I don't really like the quality of the video here, especially the colors. Let me switch lenses. This is the main lens. Zooming in even more. And this is the 3.3x telephoto. So this is how it looks. It actually looks decent in 1080p, but only on my phone screen. I'm not sure how it would look. So overall, the cameras are fine. I think for the price they're okay, but definitely if camera is a priority, look into the samples of the iQOO 9 Pro and decide accordingly, because they have been really producing good pictures. Now, coming to the performance has been great. I did not have any issues with it. There were no major heating situations, to be honest, as well in my day-to-day usage. So it's being optimized well in my opinion. And there were a lot of concerns about apps being throttled, although I did not find it a really big deal. Yes, what is wrong is enabling special things while benchmarks are running. But if an app that I'm using uses only 5 or 10% of system resources, why let them have access to 50% or 100% of my system resource? That's the point. So in that way, I believe it's not app throttling but app optimization. You could have a varying opinion. Let me know in the comments down below if you do. But honestly, I did not have any problem with it. There were issues with Gmail notifications in previous OnePlus phones. What OnePlus has done with OxygenOS 12 is added options to lock your apps in the memory, and you have RAM expansion if you run out of it, which I do not think is necessary, and I'm not sure how much it works, to be honest, as well. That's about it. No complaints in the performance department, to be very honest. Gaming is something that I don't do, so I'm not the expert, and you should not be relying on my review for the same if that's your top priority. And next, let's talk about the software. Now, software is somewhere that really bothers me and disappoints me, honestly, because last year when I bought the 9 Pro, I was really happy with OxygenOS 11. Initially, it did have its hiccups with the heating, etc. But 2 software updates in a couple of weeks from my purchase, it all got sorted. Then came in OxygenOS 12, which kind of ruined my experience, to be very honest. That was just disappointing, and it really made me angry because I did not buy the phone knowing that it would get such a drastic change when the software update would come in, because the announcement and the changes happened post the 9 Pro launch, at least in the retail unit in India. So that's something that really enraged me. With the 10 Pro, you are prepared for what you're buying into, so maybe your thoughts may vary, and maybe the things that bug me aren't what would bug you. With that, let's get into the bugs which I observed. Now, it did get a software update right when I took it out of the box. It was to Oxygen OS 12.1. It got the April security patch as well with it, so that's what I'm talking based on. The scaling of some of the widgets which I got from my Pixel 6 Pro, the Material You clock widgets were really horrible. Numbers were being randomly cut out from the widget and looks terrible, and it really bugged me. For some reason in Oxygen OS 12, when the ambient display is on, the fingerprint sensor is visible for a while and then disappears. But when you place your finger on the fingerprint sensor, it does not unlock and it drives me crazy. The next thing is you have something called as device controls, where you can keep a list of your smart home apps which you want easy access to, and it comes up in the power menu. So when I go into there and try to add my apps from Google Home or Mi Home, none of my devices show up over there and I cannot add it to the quick access panel over there, and it's really frustrating. I don't know why this happens. The next thing that was really bothersome was that the settings menu was completely changed. It had a very big overhaul both visually and in terms of how the settings are laid out. Now there are small features that are being cut out. You might mind it, you might not, but custom icon packs support on the OnePlus 10 Pro with Oxygen OS 12 is not there. Wasn't there in the 9 Pro as well, and recently the OnePlus 8 also got the update and I see that it's not there. I don't know, things that made Oxygen OS exciting for me and made me kind of tolerate its flaws or lack of features in certain ways is kind of disappearing even more, which makes it even more intolerable at this point. Now one more thing that bugged me is that, you know, everything was so made reachable in Oxygen OS 11. If you remember the One UI inspired UI design. What happened is now if I have folders on my home screen, when I open it, everything goes up in the middle of the screen. Now I don't get it. Why do so? They were way more accessible in Oxygen OS 12 at the bottom of the screen, which could help enable one-handed use. Now you do get a one-handed mode which is enabled by Android 12, but why do that? That's my frustration with Oxygen OS 12. Like, you get a lot of tons of things thrown at it from ColorOS, like all the fancy gestures, the features that are there. And these are nice. The app closing animations are way more refined, which is good. It is still snappy. It's not really slow like what bothers me about One UI. But at this point, given whatever is in there, honestly, in the Indian market, I would personally prefer One UI, and I cannot believe I'm saying this because I absolutely hate Samsung for including things like Samsung account, specific features according to that, and then their exclusivities and all their duplicate apps for everything Google already has. That's why I don't know, Oxygen OS is not a reason for me to buy a OnePlus phone. It could be the brand value, it could be the offline support you get in major cities right now because they have a really good widespread network for post-sale support. So that's really great. I don't know, I don't want to use Oxygen OS honestly. And right after this review and all my videos are done, my SIM is gonna go out of this phone instantaneously. Now the talk is about the conclusion about the OnePlus 10 Pro. Now, as I said, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Let me explain. The camera technically has some upgrades, but cuts down on the macro camera. You get a better selfie sensor, but still the same and similar processing. Now you do get a charger in the box which is really fast, but it's not really a PD charger and it's really heavy, and it is USB-A on the charger port. Next thing is you don't get IP rating in India. It's there apparently in the US versions of it and other global regions, but it's not there for the Indian unit. Other thing is that the durability is questionable because of one cherry-rig everything test, so that's something you should keep in mind. But overall, you do get Gorilla Glass Victus at the back. You do not get any bloatware, and probably still relatively one of the cleaner UIs existing in this price segment and probably in all price segments in India. But still, you have inclusion of those spotty privacy policies all over the UI, and not just that, you have addition of theme store, and there are so many parts of the UI which kind of seems like a downgrade from Oxygen OS 11, although you have a lot more features now added onto it. And see the confusing part, in the US this is launched at $899 this time, whereas the OnePlus 9 Pro was launched at $979 if I'm correct. So it gets a $80 price cut over there. So you see, that's the pattern I'm talking about. It feels really like 2 steps forward and 1 step back. Honestly, the price hike is not as such, it's just 2000 rupees from last time. So I will probably conclude and tell you about choosing between the OnePlus 9 Pro and the 10 Pro in my comparison video, because that's where it will make more sense. And I will be making a comparison with my Pixel 6 Pro as well, because it is exactly $899. So maybe it's acceptable because you see a price cut. Maybe that's how OnePlus is probably positioning this particular phone. Maybe OnePlus is guessing that people won't notice as much. And I do agree that to all the complaints I mentioned in this video, it might not matter to you at all. But if it does, make sure to keep in mind when you are making your purchasing decisions. And if you do, make sure to buy it from the link in the description below, because it really helps the channel. So that's been about it for my OnePlus 10 Pro review. I know it was really long. Thanks if you are here. And if you do, please do hit the like button, comment, and let me know about your thoughts. And stay subscribed and notified so that you know about my comparison videos coming up with the OnePlus 10 Pro. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.